All right, call this meeting to order. Rita, could you give us a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Rahman, Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Hefner,
Present.
Chair Martin,
Present.
Commissioner Mishra,
Present.
Commissioner Jarvi.
Okay, should we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I think I'd like to ask for someone to make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I move to approve the agenda tonight.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Do we all have to say yay?
Oh, all in favor?
Hmm.
Yay.
Yay.
Looking at the minutes from January 14th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay. Well, then we'll just move right into new business and have an election of chair and vice chair.
Yep. And if the commission wants to look in the packet, we actually have the election in the memorandum. We have the election process on there.
Eh,
Did you put this in, Rita, because we didn't do it right last year?
And well, no, we just want to make sure like this is just the process that we use. And if you look at the election process, that's the guidelines for that.
Okay. Well, should I call for nominations for candidate of chair?
Do we start at one end or just anyone?
Yeah, let's start over here. Do you have any candidates you'd like to nominate for chair?
I would like to nominate Joyce.
So Chair, I'm so sorry, excuse me, Chair. So I think it's just rather than doing a round robin, whoever wants to nominate
Okay.
will just like, put their hand up or yeah.
All right, well, I'd like to nominate Soumya, Chair, Commissioner Mishra. I would nominate her for chair as candidate. Any other nominations?
I would, I'd nominate Eric.
Okay, so we have two candidates, Eric and Soumya. Any others?
No, I don't
Nope.
know. What about vice chair?
Well, should we do one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nominations.
Nomination.
Oh, hit that gray button.
Are we supposed,
so-
everyone should nominate someone?
Yeah. So if you look, as long as we all have nominated, if there are no more nominations, the nominations will be closed, and then voting will take place in order of the nominations. So if you look at the election process here in the memo, voting takes place in the order nominations are made, and commissioners will be asked for a voice vote and a raise of hands.
So we need to do both the chair and the vice chair?
So first we're going to do the chair, and then we go on to the vice chair.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So this currently is for chair only.
Okay.
Okay. No, or
I have no nominations.
more? Okay, so the nominations are closed and we will take a vote. Was Soumya the first one nominated? Okay. Raise your hands if you would like to vote for Soumya as chair for next year. Okay, thank you. And raise your hand for Eric as chair next year.
Did you vote for yourself, Eric?
Well, I guess I would be willing to, but I already voted for Sylvia.
Yeah.
Is it, the vote can be used only once?
Yes, and the majority, as long as we get a majority, that passes. So congratulations, Chair Mishra. And the gavel is now to you. So you'll now be chairing the meeting. And then you're going to now do the votes for the vice chair.
Just like right now?
I know, but we're here to assist. So
Here you go.
So quickly.
So the same process is repeated for vice chair. You're going to ask for nominations for vice chair. And then once you have all the nominations, then you'll go to a vote.
Okay. So asking for nominations for vice chair, I nominate Mary to be my vice chair. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Eric for vice chair.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
Okay. So there are 3 nominations. Any other? Okay. So as the next step, I think we can do a voting over these nominations. So everyone for Mary as vice chair. Everyone as Eric. Everyone who is voting for Eric as vice chair.
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay, so that's a majority. So and that carries in. So congratulations, Vice Chair Jarvie.
So it states that 1-year terms for chair and vice chair take effect at the first meeting in February, which is today. And we've been selected for 1 year as chair and vice chair.
That's correct, yes.
Should we move on to the next one? Okay, so the next one I see here is the review commission bylaws.
Correct. And so this is basically, if the commission looks through this, this is the bylaws are in the packet, and it really just has the housekeeping rules as to how the commission conducts itself, things like how often you meet, public comment. So we ask for you guys for the commission to look over and review those, and then take a vote.
Do we have a separate commission orientation as well?
Yeah, so I think at this point, looking at the bylaws as a staff, we just like to know if you approve them, if there's any amendments, or if you have any questions.
Yeah, reading through them made me feel like they are just the same things which we've been doing each year after year. It's just written down in form of bylaws. So it's pretty much been practiced for a long time and it's ingrained in us. There are no surprises for me there. Anyone else? Any questions on the bylaws?
I want to clarify under the limited term working groups. The working groups shall contain fewer members than a quorum of the whole commission.
Yeah.
Is that roughly 2 or 3?
So that would be anything over. So 3 is fine, but if we have 4, then that would be quorum. So looking ahead, like, as this is the grant review year, we will be having like small groups together, and that'll be in 2s and 3s.
Okay, 3. Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the, also kind of the next thing after those working groups, the reports and minutes and records. So last time we met, we talked about how there's a lot of information to be processed, but it's not clear to me how that information, whether it be spreadsheet or printed documents, how that gets managed, since I haven't been through that process before.
So just to get clarity, Commissioner Jarvie, you would prefer more detailed minutes? Or
Yeah, like if you could, are there no records kept for the limited term working groups?
so that's a great question. So like as staff, like, you all have your own records, like notes, and then I will also, and then those are subject to like public records requests, so you would hold on to them, and I'm going to pass it over to Mike.
If I can try to answer what I think you're asking, which is there's going to be a lot of documents that come out of the human services grant review process, right? Like all the applications that we receive, commissioner notes, things like that. And are you wondering how we manage those
Correct.
files?
I basically want to make sure that I'm doing things the right way
Yep.
when that comes to pass.
Yeah, great question. That's actually going to be part of our next presentation with the commission orientation, because the Public Records Act is something that the city is required to follow, and it deals with exactly that question there.
Any more questions? Okay, we can move on to the commission orientation then.
Okay, if you'll just give me 1 second so I can pull it up on the screen, make sure it's shared for those online. Okay, so we wanted to give, for most of you, this will be a refresher. This is more or less what we presented to you and to all our commissions last year. And just a little quick orientation to the city, covering some general information about your roles as commissioners, as well as, like we just talked about, a couple of the big laws that apply to this commission and all of our other bodies here, which is the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Records Act. So please feel free to stop me along the way if you have any questions, and I'll just ask Rita to jump in if there's anything that I'm missing. Okay, so This is the kind of the high level org chart for the city. We have a council manager form of government, which means that voters in the city elect 7 city council members who in turn appoint a city manager to manage the administrative and day-to-day operations. So you can kind of think of the council as being similar to a board of directors who appoints a CEO to carry out their direction. The commission is one of 7 advisory boards that council has. You can see those in the box in the upper right. And there are 7 internal departments that are overseen by the city manager. And Rita and I both work out of the city manager's office. Sammamish contracts for a number of services. We often refer to ourselves as a contract city, meaning many of our functions are contracted out, and we maintain a relatively lean staff for the remainder of city functions. So some of our contracted services include our city attorney, and that's through a firm called Ogden Murphy Wallace. Our fire and emergency management services, as you all know from living here, are provided through Eastside Fire and Rescue. Likewise, police through our King County Sheriff's Office, solid waste through Republic, and we also contract out for a variety of criminal justice services from court to jail to prosecutor and so on. There are a number of services that folks often think that we provide directly or influence, but they're actually run by outside agencies. So here's some of those, which would include the library, the schools, which are operated by the districts, the water and sewer utilities, gas and electric utilities, and our internet and broadband providers. Human Services Commission meetings, second Wednesday of the month. We typically take August as a recess along with council and our other boards and commissions. Our meetings are in person at City Hall, although we do have a hybrid option available, and we meet typically from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. As Rita mentioned, and we'll get to more later when we talk about the grant process, there, especially in these grant review years, will need to be some additional small group meetings that are outside of this schedule. There's also from time to time meetings of a more regional nature. So with our peer human services commissions at other cities, and those will typically fall on a different date and time than our regular meetings. Anything else?
Just sort of following on from that, our next meeting, and I'll talk more on the staff report, we will have on a Saturday, March the 14th, and that's a joint human services equity meeting with our neighbouring cities.
So big picture, commission members bring a broad range of ideas and expertise to public decision making and provide recommendations to council. Commission's work plans are directed by the policy direction that council sets for the city. Commissions develop recommendations for council to consider. The big one that this body recommends to council is a funding recommendation for our human services grants. Commissions typically do not have budgets nor the ability to direct city funds nor staff. That's the responsibility of the city manager, who oversees staffing for all of the commissions and the daily work priorities of staff. There are several benefits and opportunities that's associated with serving on the commission. You have access to information about different plans and decisions happening at the city earlier on than maybe the general public would. You can have great satisfaction in fulfilling your civic responsibilities. You get a broader understanding of local government, and it's a great way, as you all know, to give back to the community and help to promote human services in Sammamish. Here's a list of some things that effective commission members, some behaviors of effective commission members, obviously attending meetings prepared, reading packets, showing up on time, the basics. Recognizing that serving the public is really the top priority of the city, the council, and all the commissions and staff. And that we're required to operate in an open and transparent manner, which we'll touch on in a bit. actively participate in group discussions, examine all evidence before we make a judgment, recognize that compromise may be necessary to come to a decision point, and work as a cohesive group with all of our members and listen to each other respectfully. You'll notice there's some yellow cards in front of you that council has developed as an outcome of their 2026 retreat this past weekend. That's kind of their operating agreement as to how they've decided to work together as a body. And I think those are good points to kind of consider for this group as well. And of course, effective commission members ask questions of staff. Rita and I are always available and open to speak with you on whatever it is that you have questions on. And okay, so now we're going into the first of two big laws that apply to all of our council and commissions. This is the Open Public Meetings Act, which was passed by the legislature, the state legislature in 1971, as part of a nationwide effort to make government affairs more open, accessible, and responsive. So what is the OPMA? It's an important law that requires all meetings of our governing bodies to be open to the public. Like I said, this applies to council and every board and commission in the city. So the Open Public Meetings Act applies anytime there's a quorum. And like we just talked about, for this group, which has 7 members, a majority or a quorum would be where there's 4 or more members meeting to discuss city business. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting here in the council chambers. It can happen anywhere. You can have a meeting on the phone, you can have a meeting over email, at Met Market. It's really where you have 4 or more commissioners in one place discussing city business. So it's important to be aware of that number 4, as that's where we need to start legally noticing the meeting to be able to discuss whatever the city business is to ensure that our residents are being able to participate in that process along with you all.
And just sort of adding to that, so for instance, our joint equity meeting on March the 14th, we will be noticing that. For instance, if you have a field trip that's not at City Hall, we always have to notice that with Seattle Times so that the public can also attend. And so it's very open and transparent.
Here's a few of the definitions that we just talked about. A meeting is meetings are places at which the public agency takes, quote, action. Doesn't have to be a physical presence, as I just said. Could be an email chain or a phone call. Action is any transaction of the official business of the public agency. It includes all those things you see there. And a quorum is, again, what we just talked about. So this just provides a little more definition behind those terms. And again, we'll follow up with the commission to send you this PowerPoint. So if there's anything that you're have questions with, either now or later, please review it and reach out. So the Open Public Meetings Act matters. For one thing, there are some penalties if we do violate the OPMA. A court can impose a $500 civil penalty for anyone that knowingly participates in a violation of the OPMA, and fines increase for subsequent violations. Action that we take at meetings can be declared null and void, and the meeting in violation may need to be reheld because of that. But there's, I think, more benefits than obviously downsides, and that would be increased transparency and customer service with the public. And it allows the public to come along with us in the decision-making process so that everyone is aware of what's going on. Our next topic is the other big law, that's public records and records management. There's a law called the Public Records Act, which requires that all public records maintained by the city be made available to all members of the public. And a public record is defined very broadly. It's any document in any format that is related to city business. So that could be the notes that you take from the dais, that could be notes that you type for yourself as you're reviewing grant applications. We just need to make sure that those are retained and that we can provide them to the public should they be requested. There are some limited exemptions. But if it's something that you wrote that's embarrassing, that you don't want to get out there, that's not a valid reason to withhold it from the public. There's just a few exemptions that apply. The city is compliant with this records and retention schedule, and it applies to all city-owned and privately owned communications devices. So just a reminder to try and keep any files in one spot. Use the city email address that you're provided so that they're kept on a city maintained and a searchable location, that kind of thing. So a public records request, any member of the public can submit a public records request. They can go onto our website and basically say, I want all records from Vice Chair Jarvie related to grant review process. And so we would ask Commissioner Jarvie to please send us all of his notes, his score sheets, anything that he's created in the course of reviewing those grants. And we would review them for any potential redactions. There probably wouldn't be any. And we would provide those to the requester. And those are posted publicly online. You can actually go on our website and you can see who requested what on what date and the files that we provided to them. And again, it's virtually anything you create, use, or maintain as part of your service to the city, paper records, electronic records, photographs, audio recordings, social media posts, text messages, etc. So what this has to do with you and the commission, you're responsible for the records that you create, use, and maintain as part of your commission duties. You need to understand the kinds of records that are in your care and the requirements or rules they may be bound by. But that's not to say you have to study state law and the state's records retention requirements. They're very convoluted and complex. And we have a wonderful clerk's office, clerk's team who can help to advise you. So if in doubt, if you have any questions, reach out to Rita. She'll get you connected to the clerk's office and they can answer any questions you have about your records. And the big point there at the end, please do not destroy, throw away, or delete anything that you create in your work on the commission. Again, why you should care, there can be some consequences, some fines, bad media or press, jail time in extreme circumstances, but there's a lot of benefits as well. And again, it goes along with the Open Public Meetings Act. We're trying to be as transparent and open to the public as possible and provide a high level of customer service. When discussing city business, as I mentioned, try to only use your city email. If you use a personal device for city business, it can be disclosable to the public. So if you're emailing us from your personal email, that could potentially open your personal email up to a search for records if something comes in. Avoid mixing city and personal business in your messages. So if you reached out to Rita or one of your fellow commissioners and you said, I'm going to be late for tonight's meeting because I have to take my dad for an appointment regarding his cataract surgery, and then you also mix that with city business, which is that highlighted portion, but please also voice my concern about the grants. We have to disclose that message because there's something related to city business, which is that highlighted piece. The first piece is more transitory and is not required to be, retained or provided as part of a public records request, but it's that second piece that pertains to city business. So just always be mindful about mixing those messages.
Could I ask,
Please.
could I ask a question? So,
Yeah.
if, like, for example, when we were looking for a new commissioner to fill the spot,
Mhm.
um, and we're telling someone there's a spot that's open, from what I'm hearing, the right way to do that is just switch to your commissioner email and send it to them from that email to let them know to talk to Rita, for example.
That's a really great question, Vice Chair Jarvie. And in that specific instance, I'm not sure I have the answer.
It's okay.
Uh,
I'm not trying to I just,
no, I don't. Yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
kind of things where it's like something transitions from somebody we know to something that then becomes city business. So like to split off this email
Mhm.
example that you have here, I guess
Yeah.
maybe that would be a safer example. You would say the personal thing in one email address that you already had going, and then for the other one about concerns about the grants, you would switch to your
Mhm.
commissioner email,
Yeah, my first sense is
or just
that
not say it at all in the commissioner email.
your outreach to somebody you may know, recommending them to apply to a seat on a commission, um, is that really considered city business? I think it's a little bit of a gray area. So I'm just going to say I'll ask our city clerk and we'll follow up with an email to the full commission, just so I don't say the wrong thing. I want to make sure I get
That's
you guys
fine.
the right
Yeah,
information.
no worries.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. That's a good one. Exemptions and redactions. As I mentioned, the number of records and information that are exempt from the Public Records Act are less than you would think. We have one of the most thorough um, public records laws on the books out of any state in the US. And it does mean that all city records are disclosable to the public with those limited exemptions. If there is content that needs to be redacted, it's blacked out by our legal department who does the review before it's disclosed. And anytime you're writing anything, whether it's notes, emails, etc., it's best just to assume that that record is going to go out into the public and it's going to appear on the front page of the Seattle Times. Just err on the side of caution always, and use good judgment when creating documents. And like that last bullet says, if you don't want everyone to see it, don't create it. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. These are the kind of the takeaway points. Be mindful of the records you create. Um, any record you create while using or while performing work for the city is a public record. City maintains all emails, so even if you double delete an email, it is stored on our servers and we will produce it. Develop a plan for how to track city-related communications on personal accounts. And again, we can connect you all with our clerk's office if there's any questions there. And then, yeah, as we just covered, limited exemptions for the Public Records Act. And our last slide here is just about communication, very brief, to let you all know that Rita is your main point of contact for all commission communications. So please do reach out to her anytime you have questions or you need something. Also, from time to time, you'll get resident inquiries or concerns. If you don't feel comfortable answering those or would like staff to respond to those, we just recommend that you forward them to staff just for our awareness purposes, as well as to help you all be proactive and responsive to those requests. And I just noticed that our new commissioner online has her hand raised. I'm sorry if that has been up for a while. Please go ahead.
No worries. Thank you so much. I had a question about the quorum. So I know it said that if four people meet to discuss city business, what if four of us were on the same book club or something like that? Would that be considered a quorum, a public meeting that needs to be disclosed, something where we don't discuss anything about city?
According to the law, that would not be a quorum because you're not there for city business. However, just you know, erring on the side of caution, what we typically recommend is to try and avoid quorums because from time to time, even if you are there for the book club, a topic of the commission's is likely to come up just because you all are on the commission and you're all working on the same thing. If you can truly keep it just to the topic unrelated to city business, the reviewing the book, then by the letter of the law, that does not need to be noticed as a public meeting. But we always just advise caution on that and to err on the side of caution in those instances. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the question. And so with that, we, have run through the presentation very quickly. I know that's a lot of information. We will send this out tomorrow morning. So please take another look at it. If you have any questions, we're here for them. And I just want to ask if there's any last questions before we move on. Okay. Chair Mishra, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was a very informative presentation. So moving on to our next item in the agenda is staff reports.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. Okay, we've got a lot to cover. We're in the throes of completing Q4 reporting. As you know, when we allocate funding to a nonprofit, they provide quarterly reporting and we reimburse based on deliverables. So before, we even give money, that nonprofit has a contract with us. And in that contract, they'll have service units, number of residents served, and then we have to, as staff, we have to allocate funding according to whether they've achieved those deliverables or not. So in Q4, so Bright Spark is an organization that we fund. They provide infant, early childhood mental health consultations. And we were only able to pay 562 of the 4,800 allocated. And that's because they only achieved 5 out of 41 counseling sessions. So bear in mind that when it comes to our grant applications, the new ones, as staff, we'll always be able to provide that context to you as to whether an organization has provided those deliverables. Another organization that we were not able to pay out was Cross Path Counseling. As you're aware, their counselor left and then they had to find a new counselor. And Mary's great. I've met with her and she's very, very involved. But again, they did not achieve their service units. So hopefully next quarter, she'll be up to speed and we'll be able to reimburse accordingly. So that's Crossbuff. Those are the two organizations that we didn't fully pay out on.
So I had a quick question
Of
there.
course.
How do they communicate with us that they have not been able to achieve? Is it more that when the round of fundings are released, probably you send them a survey and they tick mark and they provide some kind of proof as well, whether that was achieved or not, what was promised?
So are you talking about currently funded organizations?
In general,
Okay.
what is the
Yeah,
process?
so what it is that we have a reimbursement form and it's kind of very formal. It's on Excel. And so, they'll have on the front sheet, how much, they're asking for. And then in subsequent sheets, they'll have service units. And those are all very particular to each nonprofit. So one nonprofit might do a bed night for homelessness. Another nonprofit might do a food bundle. Another nonprofit might do counseling sessions. So they're very kind of geared to what we're giving them funding for. So when they provide that documentation, they have the numbers there. And then there's also a narrative section that they can also elaborate and explain why they've not been able to achieve their service units, and paint a fuller picture to staff.
So
But
is there
again,
proof attached that they were not able to complete those service units?
so they are the ones that are providing the data, and then also bear in mind that each of the nonprofits that we fund, we have to also provide monitoring visits to kind of go and see, show us your paperwork, show us so really that is the nonprofit providing that information to staff. And then we also look at the deliverables, and if they're not able to achieve their deliverables, then we won't pay out because that's taxpayer money. And we're very kind of we can't just pay out because and we have to be able to validate the fact that they've been able to achieve service units in order to get the funding.
And how often do we ask them for those deliverables? Is it once a year?
No, that's a great question. So every quarter.
Okay.
So every quarter. So it's every 3 months. We give them a couple of weeks into the fourth month, and then they'll provide that reporting to us.
And if everything looks good and the service units have been completed, we release the next round of funding to that.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, Commissioner Hefner.
If the funds are removed, where does that money roll back into if they don't receive them? If we've already allocated that?
That's a Mike question.
Mike,
So if we
you're
don't,
up.
if that extra funding, we don't.
Yeah, so any unspent funds would just remain in the general fund in the account that we've allocated for human services grants.
Would that roll over to the next year if it's not spent?
Typically, funds don't roll over in that way here. They would just basically go back to the general fund.
Do we try to allocate all that money every year though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I always say to nonprofits, when the commission allocate funding, the intent is not to save money. However, we also have a we also have to know that this is also taxpayer money, and so we can't just give out money. So we try and set them up for success, but again, like if they're not able to show us the deliverables, then we just can't pay out on those, unfortunately.
And so there's like a balance somewhere of funds that haven't been used because they haven't met their deliverables.
Yeah, there will be. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the right way would be to use that balance to be transferred to the next year fund, right?
So if you look at we actually have a 2-year funding cycle. So it's 2025 and 2026. And the only way we can give them that extra funding is if they've overachieved on their deliverables. So again, like, if an organization hasn't achieved their numbers, then the chances that the following year they're going to like double their numbers and then we're going to pay is highly unlikely.
Than that. I was mostly talking about the total funding which we receive,
Yeah.
every second year. If we can just add that surplus money to the total funding,
Yeah, we've traditionally not done
probably will
that.
have a bigger reserve that.
We've always just sort of like kept that, like, that's part of that funding cycle and that's kind of in its own silo, so to speak. So yeah, we've traditionally not done that.
I think they are looking for more information about what a general fund is and how budgeting works, and the city might help, just a broad overview.
Yeah, so the general fund is one of the funds of the city's budget. We operate on a 2-year budget cycle, as Rita said. So 25 and 26 is the current budget biennium that we're in. And the main fund of the city that funds all of our operations is what's called the general fund. So within that, you have funding for our operational departments, the city manager's office, the operations side of community development, public works, et cetera. Then you have separate funds for capital, enterprise, et cetera. So the general fund is really the day-to-day operations, and that's where our line item is for professional services for commission grants. And so each year we budget what we assume will be the expenditure for the year. In this case, we budget for the total amount of grants that get approved. So as by way of example, at the end of this year, when the commission presents their recommendation to council, that number that the commission recommends and that, assuming council approves it, will then go into the budget. So the budget for professional services will be whatever the council approves for the grant cycle. Sorry if that's not
No.
super clear.
I think what Mike's trying to say is it doesn't roll over and they would create a new budget the following, so that funding might go. So it's a use it or.
Lose it.
What I really feel is that was a granted money, right? That was something which the commission, or which the city council already granted it out.
Yeah.
I do understand that it's not fair to give it to that nonprofit because they're not making their service units.
Sure.
But I still feel that should not roll over to back to square zero. I really feel that should be added as a surplus to the next to next year's budget for us, so that we have more budget to grant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a very separate, like, the next sort of like cycle is separate from this cycle. And we've never sort of rolled that over. It just becomes I'm kind of assuming it's like a bureaucratic, like, ultimately, like if we haven't spent the funds, it's like it's going back to the general fund, right?
We haven't spent it, but it's something which the city council has already approved. Like, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead and spend that fund.
Yeah.
Now we've gotten that approval. So how about the right thing I feel would be just to add it over to the next year's budget, and then we'll have more, because we're mostly always over the budget all the time, right?
Yeah.
Instead of putting it back to the general fund.
Yes, definitely understand where you're coming from, Chair Mishra. As Rita said, it's just the way that we budget. We don't roll over funds from one biennium to the next. It just, we start fresh with the new budget, but we totally understand where you're coming from with that comment.
I had a question kind of related to this topic that it got me thinking about is last year when there was that emergency grant that the city council issued outside of our commission process, that, if I'm understanding correctly, that came out of the general fund. Is that correct? Or did it come out of funds allocated for human services already?
Correct. That was some general fund dollars. That was one-time funding specifically for 2026. So at the end of 2026, those services don't continue onto the future.
So what that being the case, it does give a little bit of even though we might have money going back to the general fund, it has the possibility of coming back into human services. Obviously, it's not as within the scope but the process provides for the city council to give that money back to us in the form of additional grants the next time around. I would imagine, just the same way it gave them the general fund gave them the ability to make the other emergency grant.
Yeah, yes. Technically, the council is in control of the general fund, and they can make allocations to programs that they see are worthy of them. It's a very difficult budget time for the city right now. We're dealing with some financial sustainability issues long term that council's grappling with, and so it's not likely that we'll probably see a lot of those, but it's certainly within the council's purview if something urgent and pressing were to come up, as it did in 2020, late 2025, when we made that emergency funding allocation.
I have a question that just occurred to me out of curiosity. Was that emergency funding, did it also come with expected deliverables, or was it for general support?
That was, let me just remind myself, that was with deliverables. Yes. Yeah. So there were definitely service units. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. We'll be getting reporting like on those like we would for other human services grants that we make.
That's a good question. So when it comes to the deliverables, you say you check quarterly.
Yeah.
How often do they have to not meet those for them to not get the funds that they were requested?
So it really comes down to, like, we give it in like 4 increments over the year. And so like there might be an instance where an organization has like exceeded the deliverables and they'll get all their money. So it just depends on each quarter and how many of the deliverables they're able to achieve. And so, we want to be able to like say, like, and I think in the contract actually says if it's 90% and above, we can fully pay out. But we'll also look at proportionally, like if, for instance, at the end of the year, an organization's only reached 80% of their deliverables, then a staff will give 80% of the funding allocation.
All 4 quarters, or just that quarter?
So
for the full year. So if they didn't make 80% with all those combined, or
So for instance, like there'll be some organizations that, like Assistance League, for instance, that does nothing for the first 3 quarters, and then
I
quarter
see.
4 is all there. So they'll still provide me reports with 000, and then come fall they'll be able to so then I'll give all the money then because they fulfilled their deliverables. So it's just about how that nonprofit's working and the cycle of with which it works. But most of the nonprofits are quarterly reimbursements.
If they miss one deliverable quarter and they don't receive funding, could they receive it an additional quarter if they do reach deliverables?
Yes, within that year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if
These
I
are
could
great
just-
questions. Yeah.
When the commission receives applications from these nonprofits this year, you'll see that they propose a certain number of deliverables or what we call service units. And so when the commission funds or recommends funding for a nonprofit, we take what they wrote as their deliverables for that year, and that goes into the contract. So if it's like 100 counseling sessions, for CrossPath, just throwing that as a random example, that would go into the scope of the contract. It'd be 100 counseling sessions. And so we're monitoring that every quarter, and we can see the percentage that they've completed of that total year-end goal. And so sometimes nonprofits will go over their stated goal, and sometimes they're a little bit lower. And so that's kind of where Rita comes in. And
Yeah. And then we also really work with, I always say to the nonprofits, like the commission and council have allocated funding. And, our intent is not to save money, but we also can't give you money if you're not achieving the deliverables. So as staff, we try and work with a nonprofit to sort of see, okay, can we connect you with other organizations? Can we promote, or trying to get them connected. So we try and work with a nonprofit as well.
Is there a possibility they can fake their deliverables?
Well, that's why we have monitoring visits. So we have monitoring visits that we have to do every other year, and mostly it's every year. And so in there, we're able to see their paperwork, and we can randomly ask them for things, and then so it's a really deep dive as to their processes. And also when we allocate funding, they also have to have certain measures in place, like a 501c3. They need to have good accounting practices. They need to be audited as well. If they're 500,000 and under, they have to have a professional audit. And so there are all these kind of rules, really just to show transparency and show that when we're giving that funding, it's going to where it's where they're asking, where it's meant to be going. Yeah.
And who does those visits?
That's myself. And then I work with my peers as well. So we have a really good, robust, we've got 50 plus organizations that we fund. So we have a really good, robust working relationship with our East Side peers of Kirkland, Redmond, Issaquah, and Bellevue. So then we will oftentimes pair up and work with our peers, or I might do one and not do another, but then they'll give me all the reports on that. So I think between all the cities, we try and make sure that we cover it all. Yeah. So any other questions? These are great questions, and I know these are really valid questions considering we're going into the grant process. And then also just to let you know, I participated in a joint human services funders meeting in Renton, and that's where we discussed the application process. And if you look, the applications will be opening in March. And we will be having a funders workshop in Redmond and in Renton. And the intent of that is for the nonprofits to come and understand, bear in mind, we've also met with nonprofits that haven't applied for funding. And then this is just a general workshop for anybody that wants to apply for funding, where we go through the application, and then we are also there and available to answer any questions from the organizations and nonprofits. So that's going to be coming up. The actual applications open on Monday, March the 2nd, and close on Monday, April the 6th. And we will have the funders workshop in Redmond on March the 4th. Okay. And then moving on, as I mentioned, we have a Joint Human Services Commission meeting on Saturday, March the 14th. And thank you in advance for giving up your Saturday. We had discussed with my peers about having 2 meetings over consecutive evenings. And we felt that that was just a lot for you as commissioners being volunteers. So we're going to be having like a 3-hour session on Saturday, March the 14th at Redmond City Hall. There will be ample parking, I promise, and lots of really good snacks. I think I'm in charge of the bagels. Yeah. And then also what we also discussed is that for you as a commission, in order for you to make the most of the equity training, we felt it was imperative that we have pre-work for you as commissioners. We understand that everybody has a different understanding of equity. So like a pre-work, which I will be sending out at the end of the week, it's kind of like it's reading for you to do, just so that we're all on the same page that when we're at the meeting together. So I'll be sending that out in the next couple of days. And again, it's just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we also have a shared understanding of what equity is. And then the facilitators that we have, and they're the facilitators that we had the last go round. They're from Communities Rise. They'll refine and build upon like the work that you've looked at. So just talking about the work in the pre-work, there's a description of each section that you'll have. And the first section is a definition section, and just going through many of the terms that you're going to encounter in the training. Then there's a short reading section featuring an article on implicit bias, then a podcast section and a video section. They're all quite short and sweet, I promise. And there are also reflection questions that you can ponder on after you've gone through each section. And then you're also encouraged to take note of any questions you might have, and then bring them with you to the equity training on March the 14th. Any questions on that?
So other participants would be human services commissions from other cities,
Yes,
commissioners
so
from other
that will
cities.
be from Issaquah, Redmond, and Kirkland, and Sammamish. And then what we're proposing to do is have smaller groups within that. So we'll mix up. I think it's really beneficial to meet other commissioners, and then mix it up. And so we'll have small groups so we can kind of really deep dive into certain topics and go deep. So yeah. And finally, I did not participate in the Seahawks potluck extravaganza that Mike put together because I'm a Patriots fan. Okay, just saying. But I heard it was very successful, Mike. Right? That was Elizabeth's like, oh my gosh. I was invited, so thank you, Mike. Go Patriots. But I'm happy for the Seahawks. Any questions?
Do we have pictures to share?
Yes.
We'll share those later, yeah. So I feel like this is the calm before the storm, commissioners. We have, we went through the calendar at the last meeting, and we have a full calendar, and with that, we'll also have lots of small group meetings. But again, as staff, we're here to assist you, and we'll work with your schedules. Evenings, weekends, during the day, like whatever works, we'll make sure that, we work around your schedules. Any questions? Yes.
Will we, excuse me, will we be quizzed on our homework?
You know what? It's like, it's the hard, no, absolutely not. Listen, again, it's a volunteer position, and we absolutely
Mike, there
understand.
was nothing about homework on your presentation. so not really.
It's pre-work, not homework. Any other questions? Mike, has Commissioner Govan have any questions online? Okay. All right.
Nothing from me, Rita. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the staff reports. Now we go to commissioner reports. Anyone wants to share any experiences?
I have something I wanted to share with the commission that I just found out last week, that day of the Sammamish Day of Service is kicking up again, and it's planned for May. So it's about that time to start finding, spreading the word to family, friends. It's a great opportunity to meet some of the, for people in the community to meet some of the nonprofit organizations that the city is also um, giving grants to. Some of the ones that we met last uh, in our meetings last year they're going to have volunteer projects. For example, the East Side Friends of Seniors. I've had a project with them before where we helped do some landscaping for a senior's yard. It's in May, it's spring, it's usually sunny and not raining, but it's not 100%. And they've been doing this for, I think, almost 20 years. I don't have the exact number, but it's been a great Sammamish tradition. And they list City of Sammamish on their organizations, so they like the city. Um, and I just wanted to bring that up. Dayofservice.info is their site, and I feel like it could be a way that we could help people in the community that know us and know how passionate we are about human services to have a personal connection with some of these groups. So
Commissioner Javi, may I suggest you send me information and I'll send that out to the commission on that? That would be
okay,
great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Is that specific to Eastside Friends of Seniors, or does the city of Sammamish coordinate the day of service?
No,
at
it's
any
not a
point?
city project. It's a It started with the Sammamish Hills Lutheran Church, just neighboring here to City Hall, kitty corner from and they've spread to many, many secular and non-secular organizations. So there's churches and there's the other nonprofits, and the volunteering is open to the whole community. So it's kind of been this grassroots, just people who have projects. And so I think there's been like up to 40 different service projects on that same day, that same Saturday. So you have thousands of people volunteering, and it's starting to spread outside of Sammamish. So it's east side, but it's also starting to hit places in Seattle and other organizations that do more regional service.
Oh,
So
okay. I know Seattle
they're
put
trying
the
to grow it
adults
to
are
1,000 volunteers this year. So
awesome.
Any other commissioner reports? Okay, I think we adjourn. Okay, we discussed the next meeting agenda. I think we already discussed that. We meet on Saturday, March 14th at the Redmond City Hall at 8:30 in the morning.
I have one more question. Rita, is a funders workshop, like if we had anyone come and ask us, is that on our city website?
So we will be sending out information on the funders workshop to, and then we'll get that on the city website. So we need to sort of get all that information. But if anybody is interested, please direct them to me.
Okay.
I will say that as a nonprofit, if you are applying for funding, there's a lot of, and that's why we did a pre-funders workshop back in like August, September. So again, I'm happy to. It can be if you haven't applied for city funding, it's quite daunting. So I'm happy to do and I will always suggest if you're a first time funder, come meet with me, and I'm happy to meet with you and go through the application process as well as attend the funders workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question. On the website, the applications become open, but there's no email sent out or any kind of communication with the nonprofit saying, okay, now it's open. I'm thinking of, is there?
There is. There's a mass email, and it's
Okay.
BCC'd, and it goes out to hundreds and hundreds of different nonprofits. Yeah.
So if that particular group forgets again,
Well, yes. I don't know if you recall, we did have an organization that missed the deadline. And we, we were unfortunately had to stick to the rules of like
Yeah.
if you miss the deadline, you miss the deadline. So and that was so unfortunate. I think it was the executive director understood it was, a boo-boo on their end. And yeah. And we
Because
hope that doesn't
because then
happen.
it's up to them. You've done all
Yeah,
you
and
can.
we really do, and also during this process, it's a month process, and so we also have um um and this like anyone can like call up, and so I will be manning the phone line, so to speak, a few days in that month to answer any questions. But even in the funders workshop, we say it ad nauseum, please do not wait until 4 p.m. the day of, like, because something's going to happen. Like, please, like, get it in ahead of time. Yeah. And I think for that nonprofit, that was very unfortunate, but yeah. I'm sure they'll be applying this go around.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, so we adjourn the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Just wanted to recognize we have one of our new council members here, Councilmember Michael Boyer. So
Thank you for coming. We were just discussing whether the fund should go back to the general fund. So I didn't know. I was like, hey, the question is for you then.
If I had told my kids it was free work, if they would have been likely to
They
get
would
it
have said,
done.
okay, this is optional.